This is Startup Biz Coach Radio, formerly known as Mornings with Terry, and we're empowering entrepreneurs right from the start. Find us at thestartupbizcoach.com every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern with your host, Terry Clay. Are you ready to get this business started?
Hey, this is Terry Clay, and I am back with another episode of the Startup Biz Coach Radio.
Hey, this is Terry Clay, and I am back with another episode of the Startup Biz Coach Radio. Yeah. So, we've had a day today. We had, let me just tell you something. If you have a business, we always talk about the failures in business and how you can turn those failures into success. You're always going to have some difficulties in anything that you do. And so I would always want to encourage you all as entrepreneurs that when you have those difficulties to just push forward, and you know what, that's how you can have your dreams come true. I said make your dreams come true in another episode with Dennis Kimbrough, and he was like, you don't make your dreams come true, right? So you have to check that interview out. But anyway, every Monday through Thursday we have guests on this show, and we have another guest on the show just as we do throughout the week. And on Fridays, I do the call myself. But this is our actually returning guest, so we're doing like a part two. But still, introduce yourself. Please tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. I am still Milo Shapiro. Thank you for having me back for the sequel. And last time we got together, we talked about improv in business, how I use improvisation for team building and helping people face their fears around stuff in life by taking more chances. But what I talked about also for a little bit was the fact that led to my becoming a public speaking coach, because after some of my speeches, people were coming up to me and saying, would you work with me on my speaking skills, or would you come in and work with my staff with their speaking skills? And that's going back, about 12 years now, and what's come out of it, little by little, it led to my becoming a speaking coach. I now have 2 books on the topic, and I've worked with hundreds of people to help them overcome that one thing that certainly comes up in people's failure in their lives when they've had to get up in front of a group and speak, and it didn't go quite as well as they had wanted it to.
Right. So you tell us a little bit about your book that goes with speakers. Please tell us a little bit about that, just in case they didn't catch the part 1 of the interview.
Sure, happy to. What happened was, as a speaking coach, I had clients saying to me, do you have a book that you'd recommend for me to kind of do more reading, that I'm enjoying the sessions but I want to do more? And initially I didn't have one. I had been a member of the National Speakers Association for years and gotten a lot of training through them and through Toastmasters, but I hadn't found a book in particular to recommend. So I started reading a bunch of books out there and found most of them, I can't say all of them, but most of the ones I was picking up were kind of boring. Mm-hmm. And this was a topic that I found interesting, and I thought, there needs to be a book out there that would be fun to read on this topic. It shouldn't be boring. So I said, well, then I'm gonna create that. And around the same time that I had that opportunity, a major company, I can't say their name because they didn't end up becoming a client, but a major company ended up asking me to do a proposal for a program on public speaking, and I really wanted that job. So I worked so hard. This was, over 10 years ago. I spent my entire Christmas break making this the most amazing proposal anyone had ever seen, because I knew there were other people more qualified than me at the time. And the woman called me back after, and she said, we're going to go with someone more conventional than you. You're a little playful and outgoing for this particular stuffy group, but we loved your proposal. We're going to hold on to that. Well, I took a look at the proposal afterwards and realized I had outlined the book. As I was writing the proposal, all I had to do was fill in the blanks. So that led to my book, which is called Public Speaking, Get A's, Not Z's, because we don't want to be putting our audiences to sleep. And every chapter is done with top 10 lists. The top 10 ways to completely alienate your audience. The top 10 ways to blow it with your handouts. The top 10 ways to blow it before you ever walk in the door. And so it's very light, a lot of self-deprecating stuff. I give plenty of examples of times when I wished I had known such and such because I screwed up by not knowing it, and you shouldn't make mistakes that I can keep you from making. And also from colleagues where I've seen things, or people where I've seen on stage where they made a mistake. So through other people's blunders and through a very lighthearted look at things, I cover 10 points in every chapter, and by the time you're done, you've learned a lot. But no chapter is overwhelming because it's only 10 points on each chapter.
Wow.
And I talk a lot about the power of story, too, how story is an important part of a speech, that we can only share so much data, but we can certainly share lots of stories. And if you're using the right balance of stories and data, the data that you do share will stay in their minds a lot better because you equated it to a story.
Wow, that's good. Now let me ask you a question. So how does someone with a we know that you do improvisation.
You had trouble with that word last time, too.
Say the word for me again.
Improvisation.
Improvisation, yeah. So how does someone with the background of improvisation make everything up on the spot? So we know that improv, you just kind of make up things, right? And do team building work with improv suddenly become a motivational speaker? So how do you put all that together?
Well, what happened was I was doing the team building work where I was working with people in small groups, 10 to 30 people, corporate takeouts where everyone would have a lot of fun with the games. All of the games were based in listening skills and building on each other's ideas and creative problem solving. So there was a lot of learning through the games. And it came from the attendees. They said, "You got to get up and do this with bigger people, bigger crowds. You got to do this with like big audiences at conferences and get everyone having this much fun." And at first I thought, I can't do that because I can't give you feedback, and I can't, say, "Oh, when you said this, let's try this," because there's too many people. But luckily, I happened, very luckily, through the world of improv, someone in a different city, in a different troupe, that we were at a statewide competition. I was from the San Diego chapter. He was from, I think, the Santa Clara chapter of this organization. And we got to know each other, and he said the same thing to me. And I said, "But you are a motivational speaker." He spoke on, I think, something to do with reaching your goals and stuff like that. It wasn't related to improv at all. And he said there are ways to be that interactive in front of a crowd. You should get involved with the National Speakers Association. Mm-hmm. So the timing was perfect. It happened that the San Diego chapter at that time was starting something called the Speaker Success Program. It was an opportunity to learn about the art and the business of public speaking in my own hometown setting. So I signed up for that, met some great people who were willing to volunteer their time to be helpful to others in that area to see the club grow. And I figured out that you don't have to talk the entire hour as a speaker. I didn't know that. You can actually be quite interactive. And so I speak for about 30 minutes, maybe a little less, on the topic. The speech that I give the most is called "We Gotta Fail to Succeed." And then within that speech, some stories about me, some stories about history, about people taking chances, and then I relate that to improv. And here's the connection to your question. Because in improv, we go on the stage knowing that if we're doing it right, we are failing. We should be failing about 20% of the time in an improv show. And the reason behind that, not everybody agrees, but I feel strongly, is that if we're not failing about 20% of the time doing improv, we're probably not doing anything really brilliant in the other 80%. We're playing it too safe. You watch a show like Whose Line Is It Anyway, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, those guys are so creative. They look at them, they just never mess up." Well, that's the wonderful world of editing. What makes those guys so good? What makes those guys so good isn't just the creativity. It's the fact that they throw everything out there, and it's so funny, maybe 50% of the time. But you don't see everything that doesn't make it onto the air, and that's okay by them too. I mean, they don't expect to be perfect. What makes them so wonderful is they'll take such big chances on failing that they do create such brilliance in the rest of the time. And so I get the whole. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I noticed like sometimes there are basketball players, and the ones that are like really the best, I think, are the ones that really take those. They don't care about fouling. They don't care about nothing. They just taking the shot. They just trying at it. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones that I see in the long run. They are more successful than the ones that, I'm too scared. I might foul somebody. I may, that they're afraid to do anything. The most successful are the ones that have no problem trying to fail. So I truly agree with you on that.
If they don't foul once in a while to figure out, when I stepped just a little forward, my foot that way, when I leaned into it a little bit that way, how are they going to learn? How can I push that forward without fouling? You've got to step over that line and make the mistakes in order to get it right in the future. Yeah. So that's when I said, I think I can do this. And I started creating this program where I get the audience playing for half the time that I'm on stage. And no, I can't give everyone immediate feedback like I can in the team building course, but I run around the audience, eavesdrop on some of the things going on, and then I interrupt the games once in a while and say, hey, this is what I saw going on in some of your pairs. Is this what's going on for many of you? And often all the hands in the room go up because everybody's a beginner and they're all making the same kinds of mistakes. And it's like you said about the foul shot. They're trying so hard to do the exercise right that nobody's finishing it because they're afraid to make the first mistake.
Right.
So I get them playing with that.
I've learned if you just try, that's how winning it is done. Just to try, It may fail. You may mess up. You may have some difficulties. But if you try, then you also are going to win. I learned the most, I think.
Absolutely. It's the people who try even 10, 20 times and get it on the last try. People go, wow, how did he do that? Well, it's because he failed a bunch of times until he figured it out. He's got to have that to draw from. One of the stories that people share a lot, and I occasionally reference this one, is that Thomas Edison, when trying to build the light bulb, went through a lot of iterations before they didn't work, and he didn't let it get him down. He just realized he had a lot of lessons to learn to get that thing to glow.
Yeah, I think he tried over 1,000 times.
That's what I've heard.
And, that's a lot of people. I mentioned that in my speeches as well because, most people, a lot of people would have quit at time 200, time 400, time 800,
Or one.
Forget this.
Or on the first try, they would have said, didn't work, never mind.
Yep. Oh, this must not be what I'm supposed to do.
Apparently we're supposed to use candles. This isn't meant to happen.
Right. So why is it important for others to learn about speaking and why having good speaking skills?
There are so many times in life when people get thrown into a situation where someone will say, hey, we need you to talk about such and such. And sometimes it happens to them on the spot that the boss will say, Ted, you know more about such and such. Why don't you get up and speak about it? And those moments can be career-breaking. If Ted gets up and eloquently can explain something, especially if he didn't have the chance to prepare, people can be like, wow, he's really on the ball. He's got management written all over him. But if Ted gets up there and just looks uncomfortable and can't express what he already knows, it makes it look like, oh, maybe we can't count on Ted to be able to do that. And even though another person may know the information just as well, there's something about people being able to communicate it well that makes them seem brighter, more intelligent, more aware, more capable of leadership. You look at the people who are good leaders, they almost always have good communication skills, because what hampers leadership worse than people not quite getting what they're supposed to do. But if someone has clarity and can express that, it really empowers them. I've watched people get careers out of changing just these kind of things, where they were able to seem more confident and capable and get up there and really present themselves. I've seen it be job saving, and I've seen it been the source of promotions, because suddenly someone looks like a leader, and that's what promotions usually are. It's stepping into leading more people.
Wow. Okay. So let me ask you this: when you work with your coaching clients, how does improv tie into your methodology?
It's a piece of the puzzle, especially if I work with someone long enough. Sometimes we have situations where people say, this is great that I am now more able than ever to take the presentation that I rehearsed and speak, but then there are times when I'm just asked to speak on the cuff. Or then comes the Q&A, so it's almost like having to make up a little mini 2-minute speech in order to answer the question. And so I use some exercises of improvisation in the one-on-one sessions to help people learn the skills of creating something on the spot. Because people say, well, wait a minute, how can you do it twice? So people used to say to us, what do you mean your improv troupe rehearses every Tuesday night? I thought you were making it all up. Well, we're not rehearsing the show. We're rehearsing the skill sets that help us build a show. And it's the same thing with public speaking to some degree. Learning the skill sets of how to use your body in this situation might help you on the spot think of, it's sort of like that now. Or how to create something with mime, or to remember, when I did that with PowerPoint that other time, this is kind of like that. That may sound rehearsed, but to some degree it's coming up with it on the spot, just like this interview. I don't know what questions you're going to ask me, but there are skill sets to being able to figure out how do you take someone through a beginning, middle, and end to answering a question that I think I learned in the world of improv, and I try and translate that over. I also use exercises of improv for energy. Some people need to energize themselves on the stage so that they don't look as dull. So there's a couple of energizing games that I use if I feel like someone needs to come out of their shell a little bit